Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bonfire Chats. Today, I'm filling in for Donna. My name's Bikram. I'm the founder of Bonfire Digital Wellness. Today, we have an incredible guest who has dedicated her career to supporting and uplifting students, Bonnie Simonelli, the at-risk coordinator of a school that's or district that's very dear to me. I went to Revere local, is it public or is it Revere local schools?
Local.
Local.
Yeah, Revere local.
In northeastern Ohio, where I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Richfield Coliseum, or it used to be in our district, but she brings extensive experience and passion for helping children and families navigate all the complexities of growing up, and particularly substance abuse and at-risk behavior at Revere. But you've been doing this for I think 3 decades now, right? At Parma and Cleveland School. So you've seen, I'm sure, all the different types of things that the kids are partying with, I guess, so to speak, right? Like getting in trouble with. So she's here to share her insights with us, and like how, this summer, especially what we can kind of parents can do to be proactive and just kind of understanding the lay of the land these days as things, constantly evolve. So welcome, Bonnie. Nice to be here. Thank you.
No, I'm glad to be part of this. Thank you.
All right, cool. So let's start with the current trends among adolescents. I know, you mentioned you've probably seen a lot of it. Like how do you see, things now as opposed to, 20 years ago or even 10 years ago for, middle schoolers, and then, how does it evolve even between the high school age kids?
Right. That's a great question. I would say like I'd say experimental and hearing about things so much faster. The vaping is off the chain. It's and I actually run vaping education groups. If a student gets caught with a vape here at school, instead of a ticket and a suspension out, they have an education option. If they choose that, they can meet with me for 4 sessions, and I think it's a really good choice. And then I educate them on the truth. But we're seeing as far as substance abuse in school, vaping for sure. THC is very popular. I would say it's out here at school more THC use than, not at school, but within the population of kids, students, than alcohol even. And the very close second or maybe first is the nicotine vapes.
So the vapes, because I'm a little bit familiar with that personally too. I know that you can get it, the nicotine ones as well as the THC ones. Are they kids coming in with or walking around with the THC vapes too, or are they getting caught with
Absolutely,
that?
yeah. They're absolutely walking around with them. Do we catch them all? No. Do they use them here at school? No. Are they leaving them in their car? Maybe. But yes, they seem almost like, and it really at this point they are pretty much like considered like a nicotine infraction, even with the law, because you have to be 21 to vape nicotine. You have to be 21 now legally to use weed or alcohol, right? So it's kind of put in that same category, although there's some differences, obviously, of how your mind reacts to vaping weed as opposed to nicotine, as opposed to alcohol, things like that. So there's differences there. Even somebody who's 22 or 21 can't vape weed and drive, right? So because it affects the way you can as an adult, 21 years old, should say, can vape nicotine and drive. There's not a infraction for that. You're not in trouble. It's not a DUI or anything like that. But alcohol and weed is. So, but do we see it? Yes. And kids actually talk about it pretty openly about, this is what I use. And it's because I think it is a legal substance now. It's not as criminalized, and they're more open to talk about it.
So I mean, how do you guys work, and that how does that work then? I mean, obviously when they share things with you, you're trying to build a place
Right.
where they can share it, but how do you, and this goes to the next question, is like, what are the signs that it's more than just experimenting or casual, and it's actually
Right.
abuse, or it's impacting their grades? I mean, have you seen
Right.
it go down, performance or focus, since the vapings, kind of has come, into the
Yeah.
mainstream?
Yeah, I could definitely say, like, if those, we are having a conversation and a student tells me this, like, obviously we'll talk through it, and, maybe some of them regret, oops, what did I just say to who? You know, like, uh-oh, she's paying attention. And, but, you know, we'll talk through it and what's going on and, you know, how one thing can lead to the other. I use that opportunity and I always say, like, you know, we can always talk about this. I try to keep it very confidential, because they do need a place to talk, and busting them isn't our goal. Obviously, if they do use it in school, then they are busted. That's illegal and we have to, but you know, I'd rather have a conversation with the student than, you know, call somebody up on their, you know, list of people I can call and say, hey, look, you know, because then you never know. It's out, you know, you never know. And, you know, my goal is to talk to them. You never know what the outcome. My goal is to talk to them about, you know, getting some help and getting in front of this. And, you know, you're talking about it for a reason. And, you know, I do some unofficial, you know, education groups with them. They're not in there because they have to be, because they were busted, but we definitely have conversations about it and they go very well.
Yeah,
And
that's
some
something,
red
you know,
flags you
at
were asking
Bonfire,
about. Yeah.
like we're getting, you know, we've had some, freshman age, students that the parent and some of the parents didn't grow up here. And, you know, it's kind of a new, kind of shocking to them. It's like, oh no, I caught my kid with the vape, you know, like when do you, or, you know, they've had a sip of alcohol, like, and then maybe go to the extremes.
Yeah.
You know, how do you,
Yeah.
how do parents navigate that of, you know, when's the line and when should they go, you know, kind of take this to the next level?
Right.
And even from when you talk to the kids, like when do you bring the parents, you know, involved? Because that's obviously something the kids are scared about, I'm sure too, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, because they don't get busted and end up in rehab. However, those conversations, you know, so to tell a parent, like I think just being able to talk to you about it, and when if they feel that they can bring it up, just speaking through it, because once a lot of times when you make it the, you know, forbidden fruit, then it's all even more like, oh, why is it so, you know, it almost gives it another sense of, you know, why do I have to stay away from this? And then they're hearing, you know, through social media, through friends, through advertising, that it's just not that bad. It's actually better for you. Or I'm talking about the nicotine vapes, especially like how they were marketed, and they're safer and less damaging and healthier than in cigarette smoking. And this is nothing you know, but actually doctors are now saying if you quit smoking cigarettes to use them and using a vape, you should go back because that's how damaging they are. You should go back to cigarettes because the damage the vaping is doing, you know, the nicotine vapes and THC vapes, by the way, it's about the chemical reaction that's going into your body. You know, like you take all those other things out, the nicotine's not going to kill you. It really isn't. It's going to addict you. The weed isn't going to kill you, but the chemical reactions in there, it's what hurts your body, your lungs, your organs. And that's why many doctors that will prescribe medical marijuana, right? They don't prescribe medical nicotine, but they will prescribe medical marijuana in a eating gummy. They don't want you to smoke it because there's damage that's done to your body. But going back to your question, you know, the red flags that if you start to see a decrease in grades, that's the number one. Change in friends, lack of motivation, your gut's just telling you there's something different with my kid. Watch them, you know, just watch their moves and watch who they're bringing around. That's a pretty good indication if you're like sketchy about a kid and you're like, oh, you know, you're a parent, you know, you have kids around, you knew kids back then. They're giving you a bad vibe, not to say they're bad kids, but they may be making some bad choices. And sometimes you can be the parent that kind of changes that direction for them too. You know, like not kicking them out of your house unless they're doing damage to your kid, but you know, maybe trying to be that open parent that can have those conversations with them openly. But you also want to make sure you're protecting your family and you know, and if your children. And you know, if somebody's really, really not a good, or toxic is another word for them, you know, the boundaries have to be put in there. And you know the difference. You know, a kid that's making a bad choice or a kid that's not just not a good kid. Most of them are just not making good choices most of the time. But yeah, just grades, friends, changes in behaviors, lack of motivation. Those are all big ones. The vaping, extra, you know, focused on it, like talking about them. You might find them in your house and you won't even know that they are because they're easy to hide. They look like sometimes computer, you know, chargers, on purpose, or something that you wouldn't even think is a vape. But if you find them, actually very big, red flag. Yeah.
So like what do you do when you find them? Obviously, maybe a nicotine vape is a little less scary for a parent, but if they find, a THC vape or bottles,
Yeah.
alcohol or worse, like what are the steps that a parent should do that, or what kind of how should that conversation go?
Right, right. And most of the time when you start confronting somebody, anybody, not child, adult, they're going to downplay it. It's not that bad. But, just saying, you can tell me anything. One of the biggest things, and these are my own kids included, like, there is, kids will experiment, and again, they will, most of them, not all, but many, many. And I have kids at this high school that don't, and they said, I'm proud to tell you, I've never tried it. And then that's the truth. And I absolutely believe them. But most of the time they will. I'm a big proponent of, please call me if you're with friends, or you have drank or used weed, because you can't drive okay on weed, or they can't either. You call me, you're not going to get yelled at. And I've done that with my kids many times, well, not many, but I have 3 daughters. So I've done that more than once, where I picked them up, and I meant that, and they don't get yelled at. But then that opens a great conversation for us, okay, you called me, you did the right thing. Let's talk. What's going on? You're 17, you're 18. Why, what's going on? But they're going to be, and I tell kids that you will be put in that situation where somebody will ask you, and you might try it. The worst thing you could do as a parent is judge that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, I
because
mean,
they will
the
go
peer
back on your
pressure.
history and say, yeah,
Yeah, peer pressure, like you said, is a big part of it, but both, for, kind of growth, but also, negative behavior, right? What
right.
advice do you have for parents, in terms of giving their kids, or, as well as from the school, kind of alleviate the peer pressure, kind of resist peer pressure, at least the negative peer pressure. What are they, and even further, like if someone says, hey, this person told me or told me to try it, what do you do then? Do you go tell the parent, or do you kind of avoid that kid, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, all of the above. Like, that's a great, can as a parent, you'd want to know that your kid's putting pressure on somebody else too, right? You'd want to be like, oh, whoa, that's, and typically they're being pressured as well. Like, it's kind of, or normalized. Like, the vaping is so normalized. Like, not even kids tell me now, it's not even a pressure. It's just like, yeah, everybody vapes. It's not even a pressure. It's just like, you don't vape? Oh, that's weird. Like, everybody. So, but that's, explaining to your child, like, I don't want you to be a danger. I'm going to talk to, so and so's mom about this, or dad, or guardian, because they need to know what their child is doing too. And I care enough about them in those conversations that I want to tell. Of course, sometimes kids get very angry, but and the way you could tell, another parent doesn't have to come from the kid to get kind of in trouble for talking. There's ways parents can go around that as well. But as a parent, I would appreciate the call. If my daughter was getting into something that was dangerous. So I think those are important to keep in mind. Um, and then just, and like I said, sometimes you're that house that they can go to and just say, hey, what's going on? I know that I heard you and my daughter have been, you tried this, and what's going on? And somebody's paying attention to them. And it's powerful.
So it seems like your approach or the strategy used at Revere, is kind of the open door policy, right? Like, is that something that you see that most schools are doing, like, in the area, or, and like what should
Yeah,
the parent do? Because I know there's always that concept of not, telling the school everything because it's on your record, or you can get in trouble,
right.
but it seems like, the more you share, and especially an inclusive community like Revere, that kind of that family environment, right? That we should be there for the kids, right? And listen to
Right.
them, as opposed to just, kind of enforcing the, kind of getting them in trouble all the time, so to speak, right?
Right. And that's exactly what it is. Like, we're not back in the day when I went to high school. It was about, you get a SWAT or detention or kicked out of school for 10 days. Like what did that help? Right? Nothing. You didn't know why. You didn't know why. You just told it was bad, and you were told, so we're educators. We're going to educate you. And that's so important. Like about everything that we can. And so if you're here and something happens, I think most schools are on that same exact mindset as Revere. I think that's just where we've come to as a school. We have mental health, providers in our schools. Students who maybe have, we allow time for that. Obviously, if they have an appointment and they do it online, they can come in our offices and have their private space. We're proponents of it now. I think it's become very normalized to have that ability to talk about it, and breaking stigmas about mental health or behaviors. We're not kicking, and that's a whole different thing. But as far as like anything that I do with the kids, like we do have an open door policy. We want them to feel safe. And where we get most of the time, it's another student telling us about somebody who's making some bad choices, and they care enough. And that's a really important avenue for those kids to go down and have that support, or the kid cares enough to say something like, I'm worried about my friend Joe, this is what's going on. Like, okay, please don't let them know. And we know how to have those conversations. So it's nice. I think that's the way it's shifted in hopefully most schools.
Yeah. Well, I hope so, because it definitely, now I'm aging myself too, because we're coming up on 30 years since I graduated high school. So I think things have certainly changed for the better, hopefully. But, like with, so like you mentioned that there's the mental health options at school, but when you get, I don't know how often it happens when it's like, all right, this is an abuse issue, and they do need specific treatment, specifically for addiction or substance abuse. But what are the most effective? I guess the school has resources, or the parents kind of go through their doctor, right? Or what have you found that's kind of common right now?
So what's really worked well for what I like to do, and is when I hear, however I hear of a student that might be having some issues with substance abuse, kind of talk to other staff members. Yeah, we've heard that, and oh yeah, but I see that happening, and the clues are there. I have no problem calling a parent and having them come in and say, what are you seeing at home? And having that conversation. And then who we include in that whole conversation? The students. Because they're part, they have to know that, they have to be part of that conversation, especially in high school, and probably middle school. Like, there's some concern about you. Let's have a talk, and this is what we have to offer you. Here's the places you can go for help, for support. And what's also nice, like Bonfire, for instance, it's a great, and I told you this when I first met you, that it fits into a place that isn't really always, like, the kid doesn't need full-blown partial hospitalization, right? They don't need that all the time. And that's overkill for some of these kids, that they're like, what? Like, I'm doing whatever. It's true. They're doing what a lot of kids are doing, and they're going to, 6 weeks intensive outpatient or inpatient. And they're like, this doesn't make sense. So the great range of services that we have now to offer our students, amazing. Inpatient, outpatient, intensive, counseling weekly, coaching through agencies. And we actually have a mental health agency in our school now. So they're here, and and that's great for some parents. And that used to be a no-no too. Like, oh, we're going to talk mental health in the school. No. But wait a minute. Now we know that some parents can't get their kids there all the time. This is so awesome for them to have that time once a week, whatever they need over summer, to sit down and talk to a therapist, and we've seen great changes in that. So resources are there now.
Going back to that of like, what are you guys, do you advise the parents then, or like, do they on like, when should I send them to outpatient? Like, it's more of like, how often do you have to catch them to where you're like, okay, this is a abuse, as opposed to experimentation.
Right. Exactly. Well, and then that's when you put the pieces together and you call in other staff members in, and you call in parents, and that's, maybe a first step before we have the student. What are you seeing? And then, we actually had a conversation like that, and the parent was like, so glad you called, because we don't know what to do, and they didn't know what to do. So that helped them sort it out, and to think, oh, because they'll bring it up their kid, you're crazy, of course the kid doesn't want, but now, and then we bring the kid in. So, and then we leave it up to an assessment. We don't do that here. We will say, like, you need to go into assessment and see where they assess that. You know,
Yeah,
but a lot of
you're seeing
times
like,
you're
some
an adult.
behavior in the grades are dropping, but then it's like, they need a professional or a medical professional to do an evaluation then, right?
Right. Right. But well, and like if we're having that conversation here, and sometimes I'll say, let's, if I feel, and I actually am very fortunate, I have my background, my first background was drug and alcohol counseling. So I can do assessments and I can talk to them and I could see kind of through psychosocial kind of stuff that I'm talking to, like, this is where I think they're at. But I always say, here's your resources in the community. I want you to take them there, but can I say, gosh, you probably need something like Bonfire before we need to send you an IOP? Yes. I feel like that's something I could decide by knowing the student, talking to the other people and the parents.
Yeah, because I mean, like going back to the core, root or reason why we all of us, may, resort to unhealthy ways to cope. I mean, where do you see the root of the problem is most of the time? And of course, peer pressure and experimenting kids will be kids, but in terms of the habitual use, where are you seeing the main causes of that?
Depression, anxiety. Those are the big, like the kids, and without knowing that you could cope with them, and so they're dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression. And those two are the main, I would say, culprits of why kids turn to negative coping skills, negative coping mechanisms.
And the anxiety, these days, how is it much? I mean, is it you hear all the data and the stories, but is it really, presenting as many more kids than they were maybe 10, 20 years ago that are
Yeah,
showing signs of it? Or
yeah.
mainly the social media stuff, right? Do you guys have a no phone in the school policy, or how does it work?
Not, yeah, and I know that the state of Ohio has now come up with some guidelines for it, which I'm glad, because now, for anybody that wants to battle, it's like, this is a state decision. And because it, no, we didn't have, it was pretty much classroom to classroom, nothing, across the district, but I think that's gonna change with the state of Ohio's recommendations.
So they're walking
I'm
around the
gonna actually look
hallways
those up.
with their phones and messaging and stuff, or like throughout the hall.
They, they are not supposed to,
Uh,
right? We ask that they don't, we ask that they keep, the middle schoolers are way better, but the high schoolers will have them out, at lunchtime, obviously. But in the classroom, there's some teachers, the policy is you put it in a carousel, that you leave it there for the period, and some students will, some teachers will do that, some don't. In my office, like, it's kind of not so structured, so, but actually they never go on their social media when they're talking, because we're talking, they're not looking for something else to do. But it's,
Yeah,
yeah,
right. I mean,
I
if
think
you're paying
that's gonna
attention
help.
to them, they like
Yeah,
to that someone's listening to them, right?
yeah,
So with kind of going more into the social media stuff, like how are the is that happening? How's that going now in terms of TikTok and a lot of the shaming and kind of the
yeah,
ridicule that's happening? Are you seeing a lot of that as well?
yeah. I mean, it's not getting better. Eh, this, with anything, there's a good side of social media and then there's a bad side, and like I just say, I understand it. I have a Facebook myself. I said, but once I found out it was like taking up more of my time than it needed to, I kind of backed off and I kind of just use it for check-ins. But you could find, you go on TikTok, you can find some really cool things, right? Or you go on TikTok and find some really bad things. So it's just how you use it, and that's what you have control over, you know. So I don't think it's getting better. Um, I do obviously tell kids to be so careful, obviously, because there's lots of predators out there, and who you're talking to isn't who they present, who they are, believe me. That's not how it goes. So that's the scary part of it. But but we make them aware and we keep talking about it, so hopefully that reminder all the time is helpful. But yes, and social, and yeah, and I always say this, like, oh, I'm an adult way older than them. I said, and I know when somebody on social media is not really who they're presenting, because it's always the good stuff. So you gotta keep that in mind. Nobody's life is perfect. So when I see that, and I don't see, who wants to see the bad stuff, but You just have to keep in mind what you're seeing, and what they're talking about isn't really the reality. And just keep talking about it. And most of the kids are like, you're right. You know, I see that too. My friend is posting all over how wonderful it is, and not so wonderful, you know, their job or whatever, they hate it. But you know, so just try to remind them, be real with them.
Yeah, no, I think that's the best way. So they're lucky to have you, to have someone like you that's not, especially in the role that you have. It would probably be intimidating for a lot of kids. Like, oh, I'm in trouble, right? Like, if I'm going
Yeah,
to see her, but
yeah.
no, but so we also are very about balance, right? Like their social media has a lot of good, but then certainly a
Mhm,
lot of dangers, just like driving a car, or things
mhm.
that you do need to be more mature, and certainly know some of the guidelines and understand. But for example, with Revere Soccer Twitter, I would follow that to follow the team. And whoever,
Yeah.
I think it's a student. I mean, they were great, like
Mm.
the way that the content that they're producing. So there's a lot of creativity and things that they're learning as they're doing this, but then kind of sharing with the community what's going on too.
Yeah.
um all right, well, I know you've been a big fan of Bonfire over the last
Mhm.
couple of years. It's been nice support for me and all of us, but you kind of touched on it a little bit before, but we use school counselors, which I know is dear to your heart too, as a former school counselor. But how do you feel that we call it coaching, even though it's more like emotional, holistic support that we think
Mhm.
school counselors are unique to have with their experience and their training, to whether it is something about addiction, or about grades, time management, or fighting with their siblings. You kind of are a Swiss Army knife to support the
Right.
kids. But what do you feel like, what are the strengths or benefits of like having these regular check-ins? And
Yeah, I
obviously you
love it.
guys use it more
Yeah.
for the kids at risk, but we feel that every kid kind of needs that to really stay on top of their game. But how do you feel that
Mhm.
prevention, as opposed to waiting till it gets to
Mhm.
crisis, can optimize the outcomes?
I think that you hit it when you said everybody can use that. It doesn't have to go. You and I said in here, like, kids don't pull their phones out and start on social media because I'm talking to them. I'm asking them questions. We're paying attention, and if they know that some other adult, besides somebody in the family that has to love them, right? You have to do this because you're my parent, or you're my uncle, or but some other adult in their life pays attention to him and asks him, tell me about your week. What was highs and lows? What would you change? What went really well? Like those simple questions and those check-ins, this open up everything for a student. They like, oh, this person actually wants to know about my week, wants to know, even if it was silly, I could talk about it. And I think that's so important to mental health because I think it gets in front of it. It gives them, instead of going to a negative, I know I'm going to be talking to my coach at Bonfire, about this crazy day I had, and they're gonna listen, and I don't have to go smoke weed to cope with it. I know I'm gonna have, so it's a really important piece. We all need it. Who doesn't like to be asked, hey, how was your day? It was horrible, or it was great. It's just, who doesn't want to be asked that question? So, and and one of my tricks, not tricks, it's actually something I love to. I meet them where they're at. Like if it's about basketball, like I get, one of my, to connect with kids, you got to figure out where you're going to connect. Like even talking about that opens up a lot of, avenues, or just something. You got to meet them where they're at, and then pretty soon you're talking about really other things, right? But I love the coaching concept because I think still kids and adults sometimes need to be told, how to handle it. This is a different, you're teaching them, and sometimes they don't know. They don't even have the first clue how to hold the bat. You got to show them, right? And that's why I love coaching as a concept, and those check-ins, and they could absolutely be weekly, daily, even for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, Um, sometimes when our student leaves our school and starts an online program, I always keep in contact with them because I want to know if they have a connection here. Well, not always, but I try to always keep in contact with every kid that goes on online, because like you come back. And when you come back, you need to feel like somebody still cared here. So you're still one of us, but you're just doing it differently right now. And I understand why. So it just, when they know you care, they know you care.
Nice. Well, so in terms of the, overall well-being of the, kids at Revere, or generally that you're seeing now, like where, I'm trying to remember if there was really even a focus at school to like get sleep, when we were kids, but like
Yeah,
how is it now in terms, because all the data is showing that sleep is the number one, predictor of how they're going to perform,
yeah.
and also for anxiety, and a lot of other, kind of issues that can stem from that. But like overall well-being, like sleep, movement,
Yeah,
diet, where are you seeing like the state of adolescence right now? And then what is the school kind of doing to help bridge that gap?
right. So, speaking to sleep, I know that there's actually a parent, and she's very involved with care, who is looking at how maybe starting later is, that's one of her missions, and she's talked very openly about it. In some states, they don't start before 8 o'clock, and that's because sleep is so important, and especially at this age, when she has great data that she shares all the time. And I don't even want to pretend like I know it all, but she makes a lot of time like, oh yeah. But and we actually, the diet, I mean, we have a great cafeteria, and it's nice. Salads are served, and you actually see the kids making some really good choices. Not all of them do all the time, but they try. There's obviously good choices. And then, balanced life, you said that word too. Like, some of these kids work and they go to school and they have responsibility at home, and they have a lot going on, but I'm very proud of them, because I'm like, you're already adulting before you're an adult. You're trying to come, you're giving this much effort, but and also you could back off a little bit, but it's nice to see them multitask and do those things. And and if I feel like they're overwhelming themselves, I'm like, let's talk about ways to undo some of the things you're doing. And you don't need to take that fifth AP class. You can maybe take a little, give yourself a break. um so just talking through some of the ways to cope with it, and stressors and other positive things. So, and we Revere, like, the athleticism here is huge. The kids, a lot of them, and org groups and clubs, and there's so many they could join. And even recycling club, which is very, very, very big. I love it. Like, we have kids here that care about the next generation and what they throw away. It's awesome. Like, our recycling club is one of our biggest clubs.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, there's not, I'm a sucker. Most of the time, if kids wants to start a club, I'm like, I'll advise that. And we'll try it. It's like, I'll do that, because it's really cool. If they have an idea about it, let's try it. Sometimes they stick. So
Well, I know you came into the school today. You guys started your break a couple weeks ago already, but like we just did a blog post on the summer slide, in terms of
yeah,
when they come back to school and they're, a little bit behind from some of the relaxation, or a little too much maybe in the summer. But
yeah,
it sounds like you guys had an event today, but like what other things can a parent do to kind of keep their kids, or tips to keep them engaged
yes,
through
yeah,
the summer, what they should try to focus on.
right. I think public libraries have so much going on, and that's a lot more younger. But there's always books that can be, taken out in clubs and some, like, programs throughout the summer. The libraries are awesome for that, keeping the learning going. Keep being in a sport is awesome too. Like, you're learning something, right? And we have summer reading, so students are expected to read over the summer. Yeah, so that's good as well. So that you keep the mind going, and I think they're finding out that it's not as drastic as I think. I was reading up a little bit of research about it, because they, year-round schools versus, the summer break schools, and they're finding it's kind of not as, there's not a biggest discrepancy as we thought, which is good. That we can, I think, and I think students, like, that are motivated, just stay up with it. Now, some of them let it go, and I get it too. You got to give that break to your brain, and you got to let some stuff go and relax and have fun. So
Have
We
fun,
we do
but
we
not
have
too much fun,
programs.
right?
Right, not too much fun, right? I don't want to see you sit in my office because yeah, first day of school, but
When
yeah,
is when's
right.
first day for you guys?
Don't quote me, I'm pretty sure the 22nd of August.
Oh, okay.
That's a question you should never ask that question.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
like the first
it's
person to ask it.
at least 2 plus away, so you got some time.
Correct, correct.
Yeah,
But no,
we're
it's in, yeah,
actually offering, and I got to share it with you if you want to share it with any of the families, but kind of the Thrive Summer program where, especially that last 4 weeks or 5 weeks before school starts, of having these weekly check-ins to kind of get them more in the mindset of getting ready to start school. I mean, like going back to that summer,
yeah,
do you see? It usually takes a week or two for a lot of kids to kind of get in the groove, or longer, because
sure,
just being
yeah,
off for
sure.
a few months.
Yeah. The first couple days, first, and I think our first day is a Thursday, if I'm looking at it correctly. It's the 22nd, so we got 2 days and then a weekend, and then a week, and then
Labor Day.
Memorial Day,
Yeah.
so like there's breaks in there, good or bad. Yeah, that Memorial Day, or is that the following week? Might be the following week. But
Labor
yeah, we
Day.
start, yeah, Labor Day, right, Labor Day, that's right. We just had Memorial Day. So yeah, there's definitely the exciting of coming back and the nervousness of coming back and all that is for everybody, teachers, administrators, kids. But we get
Yeah,
through it. And
through you, through the wellness fair that you guys had. I didn't make it this year, but met the superintendent. So he's leaving, huh? Or did he take another role? Or
I don't know Doctor, he's a great guy. I don't know. I haven't heard that he's looking at other, I don't know if he's ready to retire. I don't know. I did today actually meet our new superintendent, very nice guy. Um, Mr. White, just met him today. He was at the golf outing, so that was nice to meet him and put a face to a name and meet him finally. But yeah, Dr. Tufts, I'm not sure.
yeah, I
He's a good guy.
saw the letter he sent, or there was an interview one of the students did, I think, with him before that he announced that he was leaving. But it was interesting, and even meeting him, I could tell that he really does care about the students, and understands that mental health is like one of the top things. And
Yes.
I think the question the kids asked was, what is the number one thing you want, you know, the school to, do or provide, and it was like, kind of enhance, or just, kind of our mental health offerings, which sounds like it that you guys have, right? In terms of all the different in-school options. And because that's one of the benefit of
Yeah.
us being online, is all that, you kind of avoid the drive around. But when kids are in crisis, we're for kids that are, we can work with kids in crisis, of course, like coaching, goal setting and stuff like that. But certainly when there's, treatment required, that then they do need to, physically see someone, and the
Yeah.
accessibility is the number one problem. So having it
Mhm.
in the school seems to be, a real big win for the district and for the kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine it would ever go out of our school. And I think that, and in the role of the school counselor is so different now, it's so different than it used to be, and the school psychologist is so different. So what they used to be able to do is pushed differently, and so we are so grateful to have the support of mental health right here, or let a student, log in, talk to your therapist, you have your time. You need, how did that go? You need some time, we can accommodate whatever they need, and it's nice. That's respected. Really, it's important. And I see the change. I see, and like I said, one of the things is we have a Active Minds group here, which is, and it's a pretty big club, breaking the stigma. So when kids have mental health stuff going on, they're allowed to say it. It's not, embarrassing to them. It's not, you have that too. Oh, wow. What do you do to cope with it? They teach each other. Very nice.
Nice. Yeah, that's the stigma, unfortunately, is the one of the biggest roadblocks, I guess, is for,
Mhm.
improving, is that parents, first it's the parents don't, maybe not my kid syndrome, and MK we say, but then also, like, going and seeking extra support, or is it, or the walk of shame, so to speak, in the school, going to those school counselor, going to the, but hope, also it's the bedside manner of people like you to make it more approachable, right? Which
Yeah.
is really sets the tone for the rest of the building, because
It,
feel that most of our coaches, I mean, all of our coaches are school counselors, and most of them don't really get to do the coaching that much. It's a lot of
right.
admin work. Some of them, are subbing classes when there's teachers absent, which of course, that's all hands on deck, some of these districts, but it's not really, their strengths, right? Of where, it's the motivational interviewing and kind of active listening and helping kids navigate those challenges, where a lot of times it is, kind of stuck with the kids that are in crisis, as opposed to, kids like me. Frankly, when I was at Revere, 35 years ago at middle school, like we had the best school counselor, but she only saw the kids that were getting in trouble. You'd see them maybe
Right.
once a year in the hallway, but it was still that approach that I always still to this day remember. My school counselors are special. Why do I remember that lady from 35 years ago? Because they really seem genuine and ask you how you're doing, as opposed to telling you what you should be doing, as maybe some of the other teachers do, right? Cool. All right. Well, any last thoughts or tips for the parents that you want to share?
No, just well, yes. My biggest tip is like pay attention, ask them questions, genuinely have them ask you questions. Be honest, because they are curious and they want to know, and the best place to learn is from people. They're adults that are safe and healthy. And no, try not to judge. Really don't judge. Try not to, just don't judge, because then you're going to lose them right away. Like no student. Judgment-free zone here. Whatever you did, we're going to talk through it. There's no judgment. That's my best advice.
Yeah, how do you apply that rule to yourself? I know you mentioned you have some kids. Was that easy to or hard to do, to take that hat off when you go home with the?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So like, what are you thinking? Like, and then you put it. It's really about you, right? I didn't raise you to be like that. Like, it's not about you though. These are people, and people make bad choices sometimes, and you have to deal in the conflict. And you know what else? Here's another big. Let them feel a consequence. Ooh, let them feel a consequence, because until a kid understands what hot means, they're gonna reach for that thing until they're what I mean, like hot isn't anything until they know what it feels like. So
Right.
please let them with your protection. You don't want them to fall down a horrible drainage ditch or whatever, but let them feel a consequence. Let them understand that your actions have a reaction. What did the teacher say? For every action, there's a equal and whatever reaction or something. It's a physics thing, but it's really let them know and let them dig themselves out. One of my best, I'll never forget this. I used to coach Little League with my kids, Little League softball, and all the girls wanted to pitch, and some of them were great pitchers and some of them weren't, but I always gave them a chance. And I remember the one time this girl got up she was pitching the ball. And she was walking and walking and walking, and she looked at me, and I could tell, and I'm like, okay, all right. And the good news is, after so many walks and runs, they come off. But I took her off before that, and the coach came up to me, the other coach, a good guy, and he said, because I would have never done that. And I go, what? And he goes, I had to let her get herself out of what she got herself. She wanted to pitch, and I'm like, you know what, you are right. And I thought, that's a great life lesson for me. Let them figure it out. Help. Here's your coaching. Here's what you're doing. And you know what? It's not the end of the world if you walk every kid and we have to, we walked our 5 this inning. It's not the end of the world. And that's a consequence. You wanted, this is what you wanted. We're gonna try it, and you're gonna figure it out. And it's a good lesson.
Yeah, I mean, mine are only 8 and 4, but it seems, especially when it gets, we're already some athletics and performance arts. She was in a play over the weekend. Just that kind of the when you lose, right? Like Revere lost in the state championship, right? That they made it so far and did so well, but those the coping with that, right? There's so many all these stressors of of competition and winning, right?
Yeah,
Like, which you know, which is good, but also bad, right? Because there's so much, you know, especially on social media, oh, when you lose, you know, people are you get all the
yeah,
food gallery out. And I heard that, like, I've seen some Copley parents or the Revere, I don't know, it was like lacrosse match that was happening between them. There was a lot of like social media going back and forth that I noticed. But what, how do you know, talk to kids about that? Or did you guys work with the teams or the soccer team this year in terms of like handling that pressure or how to handle that anxiety?
right. I know that we had the Breathe team in here and we still have the Breathe team. And basically they were working specifically with sports teams about that. You know, that's a great question for Coach DePompe. I don't know if they had, I would imagine that they did, but I can't say for sure. But having like almost like the mental health, I mean, every great pro team has somebody on board with them. And I went to something with Active Minds, and it was Kevin Love, Kevin Love of the Cavs, who he is the coach, not the coach, the team mental health provider was there with, you know, like that's, you know, like they have a team mental health provider that works with them. So, and he was normalizing it. He has mental health issues and he was talking to hundreds of kids about it in Active Minds. Again, that's another shift that I think is, you know, yeah, your athletes have things that they need to talk through. Mental health is so much different, right? It's not being unhealthy, it's being healthy. And we coach that, we build that. And who can get on the field and really do their best if they're not feeling their best, physically and mentally. So my guess is, but I'm not gonna say for sure 100% that my guess is that is addressed. I don't know at what level, if they had somebody coming in, but we did have a Breathe person that was coming in a few years ago, I think pre-COVID, to talk to the kids that were on teams. And Revere did well in a lot. So if they did, you know, a lot of sports, they came out really well this year. A lot of students did.
Nice. Well, I know you, the last question in terms of, you kind of reminded me what we were talking about before with college, your applications and acceptances or rejections. You know,
Yeah.
how did that go, you know, this year? And, you know, what advice do you have for parents going through that process?
Right. One of the students that I worked with, you know, she wasn't her first pick, but she got a full ride to OSU. And I told her I'd never talk to her again if she didn't take it. Because I'm like, I had two kids that I paid full tuition for OSU. So you bet, you know, and I said, your plan B might be the best plan A that you ever didn't know you had, you know, and I said, there's a reason and it's all going to work out. Plus, I said the same thing, like whatever school they go to, these kids are going to succeed in their fields, right? So they're just, and guess what? You might start here and then you can make a different choice. My daughter did just that. She thought she was at Cincinnati, was all about her, and she got there. She's like, and she applied to Ohio State, and now she's finishing there. So you're not pigeonholed, right, in anything. So it's just you do you and you figure it out, and that's part of her learning. Like, yeah, I thought I'd like Cincinnati. Well, I didn't, but I'm gonna do what I have to do to get to Ohio State, and she did. So good for her. She figured it out. So it's not always not always even not the way you think it should go helps you learn something. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot, Bonnie, for
Yeah,
your time and all the insights you shared. And we'll probably have to bring you back next school year when things are starting up again. Who knows what
absolutely.
new apparatus the kids will be doing at that point, right?
Right. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I'd be glad to talk to you guys anytime or whatever questions or a live session, whatever.